mi gente, buenos días. Estamos aquí with Latina Leaders Rising, El Poder de la Mujer. I hope you're enjoying these series. And today we have a very special guest, Elizabeth Suarez. And I've known Elizabeth for quite a while, and she is doing some dynamite work. So we're going to talk with her a little bit about that. Well, she's a very sought after strategist around negotiation, which is so important, and we're going to find out why. And she has worked with organizations across the country, including corporations and nonprofits and universities. And she teaches you how to be a skilled negotiator and leader. So she climbed the ranks of corporate America for 15 years, and we're going to learn about why she decided to leave. And she has an MBA from the how do you say it, Elizabeth?
At Wharton School.
Wharton. That's not a Latino word. The Wharton School of Business, and that is a big deal. And she also went to Cornell University, and we're going to hear about that because that is a really interesting story. So she wants to empower you, not just about money, but learning how to negotiate to get what you want and what you need and what you deserve. So welcome, Elizabeth. Bienvenida.
Hola, thank you for having me. I'm so excited. This is so much fun.
And I see you have your Barbie pink on today.
Yes, with my lipstick. Come on.
Anyway, well, I usually start asking their origin stories and their background and their families, but I really, really want to get into your work first because it's such an important thing for women to learn. So tell us about your work in corporate America first, and why you decided that you had a different calling and how you used that experience in corporate America to kind of launch this new phase in your life.
Yeah, that is an interesting question. And especially now having my daughter that's also now in corporate America, it's interesting to watch her evolution. But I was actually in corporate America almost for 2 decades. So that is a long time. And I started as a production engineer in one of the manufacturing firms of Johnson & Johnson that made Tylenol. So I really learned all my leadership and negotiation from those first 4 years of my career. Why? Because I was the youngest person that was brought in, the only female that was brought in, and the only Latina. And Tres cosas. And I was basically managing older individuals to make Tylenol. So I was managing mechanics, I was managing line operators, I was managing facility managers, and I was 22 years old. I mean, I could have been their daughter, their granddaughter, and I learned the importance of understanding everybody's perspective, and also the importance of you making your own decision and moving forward with this. And if the decision wasn't the right one, do recourse, like basically recenter and say, okay, I have to make another decision. So I really understood how to embrace failure. I understood how to ask for it, and I understood how to negotiate the hardest I could for my team in order to go forward. Now, that was a great experience. And then from there, went and got my MBA from Wharton, came back, worked for Pepsi-Cola, worked for Cyanamid International, major corporations that took me all over the world doing great work. And then I ended my career in telecom. But I can tell you, throughout the time, I got tired. I always tell everybody, I lived the me, myself, and I syndrome. I was the only female. I was the only Latina. I was the only one with an accent. I got to a point that I looked right, I looked left, and I just needed people to give me support and actually be like my cheerleaders. And I did not have that back then. Now, fast forward to now, and the reason why I'm so adamant of getting Latinos and Latinas to understand leadership, to understand negotiation, is because we have the numbers. I started in corporate America in the mid to late 80s. Trust me, the only other Latinas, they were not in the corporate boardroom like I was. They were making the lunch for the individuals that were in the meetings with me. Now it's not like that. There are Latinos and Latinas everywhere, but we have sat back and well, our good job and our good work will get us up there.
Yeah, I always say Latinos work hard, but they don't work smart,
Exactly.
And because we love to work and want to do a good job, we do that. I've even had engineers tell me they won't promote me because I do such a good job. They don't want to take me off my projects. So I do want to know, is there a little story you can tell about when you were young and had to manage someone, a white male, for example, and were you able to do that? Was there anything that you did that you can share, people can learn from?
Actually, when I was very young and my father passed when I was 10, and I had three older brothers, Latinos, older brothers, that I actually had to manage them because they always looked at me like, ay, la pobrecita, she's the little sister. They were teenagers, they were about to go to college. And I was like, no, I'm not pobrecita. All I need is the exposure and the tools. Y para. Don't look at me like, oh, let me go ahead and take care of mi hermanita. So a lot of the training, I learned it from my brothers. And then at the same time, I was a secretary, like a receptionist for Chase Manhattan Bank in Puerto Rico when I was a teenager. And everybody that worked there were men, and they would like order me around and do this and do that. And I would say, you know, I'm only here for 8 hours. They are not allowing me to work extra time and pay me extra. So I can't do that. And I already did these other things. So I really had to advocate for myself because I was in a world of all men. And I grew up in Puerto Rico. It was all men. I was the only, normally I would walk into meetings when I was like a receptionist to take notes, and I was the only female. How sad is that?
Yeah, well, I do think, and we will talk about your early life. I do think having brothers, because I had four brothers,
Mhm.
especially at my age, did prepare me to stand on my own.
Mhm.
So for those people that are listening, or women that are listening, Latinas, if you have brothers, think about how you have had to really stand on your own, even in your own families, right? Even in
Yeah,
your own families.
definitely. Yes, yes. And I
Yeah.
adore my three brothers, by the way. Let
Yeah,
me.
I adore my brothers as well. And I think as you grow, they really begin to respect you and
Mhm.
to be your cheerleaders. I mean, my brothers are my greatest fans, or at least were. Well, how did this experience in corporate America lead you to be one of the top Latina negotiators? What did a light go on? You said it was me, myself. You were on your own. So what
Yeah.
happened? Here you are, successful. You're where a lot of Latinos want to be, and you go like, this isn't for me.
Basically, it was actually when I came from California back to Denver, and I was asked again. I went from a lot of M&A was going on. They will buy. I was in the telecom internet bubble. They will buy the company I work for. Then they were like, "Oh, come to this other company," and I did that for four companies. And the fourth company, I came back to Denver, and they said, "Oh, Comcast bought us, so let's go back to Philadelphia." And at the time, I had kids at home. I also had a mother at home. I was still married at the time. And I was like, I need to create a correct balance because I can't continue moving my family. Plus, I felt lonely. I did not feel that I had a support system staying in corporate America. And that's when I said, I think a lot of it is that I did not know the special skills that you need to know in order to self-advocate for yourself and ask for it and be okay with failure and do a recourse with the failure. I did not learn that. I learned it the hard way while those almost 20 years in corporate America. And then I realized there's more Latinas and Latinos here. I know the secret sauce. I
Wow, that's a
I want
great
to teach
one.
people. I really want to teach people. And I have noticed that everybody that I have coached, and I'm very blessed to have coached a lot of Latinos and Latinas, and I continue to coach them, their success, it's like I feel like I'm their mother. I sometimes cry when I get messages from them or calls from them, and they say, you know what I was working for? I got it. And we're crying on the phone. I mean, and they're like, it's because of you. It's like, no, it's not because of me. I gave you the tools. I gave you access to tools. It's because of you. You went
Wow.
ahead and implemented the tools.
Well, I know in my own career, and I named this because I learned this from you. When they say no, I say game's on,
Uh-huh.
and
And
women, because we have a double thing. We were socialized as women and we were socialized as Latinas, and both are cultures where we were taught to be nice and congenial and to get along and to take care of people. And so this whole idea that when somebody tells you no, you say go, meaning what else? And now, whenever I negotiate going out to do a talk or anything, I now negotiate how many books are you buying? Or, I mean, I now know that it's just a starting point. And sometimes, like the people that get a hold of you, you're just blown away that you get it.
Well, one thing I
Because
say,
if you don't ask, how are you going to get
I
it?
know, and I just came back from training 60 Latinos in corporate America. I just came back from New Mexico doing it for an organization down there. And I can say to you, it's interesting. I said, look, a no means new opportunity. It also means that if you ask for something and they say yes, you have left money on the table. And I mean, they all looked at me. They're like, well, I don't like to hear no. I said, I actually like to hear no because I know I'm at the cliff that they're going to throw me off. And I do, oh, let me go back. And now let me figure out what I have to do. Because whenever somebody says yes to me immediately, I know what I offered and placed on the table was they're actually sandbagging, if you think of it that
Oh,
way. So
that's interesting.
you do not want to like an insult, like, oh my God, no, get out of my office. You want the like, I actually cannot do that. Okay, well, let's talk about what you can do. Let's talk about the parameters. And you should see how all of a sudden you change the conversation and now you are in control.
Okay, well, give me these as tips, as if you were coaching the women that are listening. So we have one, no means new opportunities.
Mhm.
Two is that, and this is true, if you put your offer on the table and they take it right away, or you take the first salary, or you don't negotiate for extra benefits, that you really lost because you're at their bottom line in a sense. I mean, this is what they're going to offer. So, what are some other things that you really think Latinas need to know?
Another thing is, and I just did it with a client of mine that's now a COO of a major organization. She's a Latina. And one of the things is when they offered her the job, she says, oh my God, Elizabeth, look at everything they offered. And I looked at her, I'm like, interesting. I bet you it's not the end. I bet you there's more that they can offer. And she's, oh my God, come on. And, Mexicana, she's like, it's amazing that I can do this. I said, stop. Stop about thinking of your background. You need to think about what you're bringing to the organization and why they want you. They really want you. And before you accept the job is when you have the most power. So this is the time to ask for it. So she went, guess what? They gave her more money. And they even gave her that in 6 months, they will reevaluate what she has done. And now they're going to put her in another bracket concerning compensation and some benefits. All because it said, you have to ask for this. You have to have it like a conversation. Not that you're demanding, you're just asking us a conversation. Do your homework and say, okay, at this level and this type of organization,
Right.
what are the men getting? I said, forget the women, forget the Latinos, forget everything. What are the white men getting? She did her research. She comes back to me, says, wow, look at all this stuff. I said, now we're game on. And guess what? She got everything. That
Wow, that's a great story.
CEO at the end looked at her and said, you're an amazing negotiator. Thank you for challenging me. I appreciate you and I can't wait to work with you.
Yeah, and I think we don't get that when you know the rules of the game and you can be a strategist and you can negotiate, they respect you.
And, and this is what I want to tell every Latina out there that's listening to this. Get a coach. Please get a coach. I'm not saying that I have to be your coach. This thing that you can do it all by yourself because you have all the information, it is a fallacy. You need to have a coach. You need to have mentors. You need to have people that have been through this before, that see it from a different perspective and can guide you. I don't care how many PhDs and MDs you have. You need other people with different perspectives to give you guidance.
Yeah, that's a great advice. Well, do you think Latinas have some communication and some barriers from our culture or challenges? I do want to say this, by the way, that maybe in the past we weren't in a position to negotiate, but now with our education, with our experience, with our numbers, with our market share, we have so many things going for us, which, I call the Latina advantage, that we should step up into our power. And we don't always know how to do that because of our history and our culture. So, we were colonized, if you want to call it that.
No, I know. I come
Marginalized.
from a colonized island, but
Right.
the United States doesn't call it a colony. But come on, let's be serious. But that's another topic. That's another
Well, we'll
thing.
get to that actually, but go ahead because I really want to know about that. What are some barriers that maybe Latinas should look at and kind of just understand, because saber es poder, knowledge is power.
I mean, your gut tells you stuff, you know it, you know you're capable, speak up. Don't expect that somebody else is better. That imposter syndrome, put it aside. Talk to yourself and say, I can do this. And I'm still humble. Because many of us, and it came from me too, it's like, well, I need to be humble and, the hard work and let others lead and whatever. No, we also can lead and we can still be humble and take care of others. And we have the numbers. We have the numbers. When I was in corporate America in the late 80s and the 90s and early to mid 2000s, no, there were not that many Latinas. Now I go into organizations and having leadership training, negotiation training of 30 women or 50. I mean, that could not, before you could not fill rooms like that. Now they're like, oh my God, there's a waiting list. Elizabeth, can you come back next year? But of course.
Yeah,
So that's a key thing. We have the numbers, we have to unify, and we have to put our imposter syndrome to the side.
Explain the imposter syndrome for people that are listening.
Yeah, the imposter syndrome is that you question yourself. That's how I like to define it. You have the capability, you have the knowledge, you have the skills, you have the experience, and you still do. Oh, I don't think I know enough. I need to go and get another certification. Oh, I don't think I have the experience. I think he has the experience better than I did because he worked at a bigger company than I did before. You always look at the people around you like they're better than you. You're equal. You're all good.
Well, I actually, back to the Latina advantage, one time I was on a committee that was basically white corporate men, and I was really kind of scared to go in the room, and I did my self-talk. And what came to me from my intuition was that for me to sit at that table with those men from where I came from, and one of them, by the way, was Bill Coors from the Coors Company.
Yeah.
I had it going on. I mean, how did we get to that table, given my mother had a fifth grade education, or giving what we had to go through to get there? So I think that's a really important part of this. Start embracing the fact that we are bicultural, that we have learned, we still need to learn the rules of power, how to negotiate, how the white system works at that level. That's part of what we're doing as we move up. But we bring so much to the table because of our resourcefulness and what we had to do to overcome to get there. But listen, you wrote a book to put, go ahead.
Okay, one more thing I want, because I
do
executive coaching of white men in C-suites. I have several white men in C-suites. I want all the Latinas to know they also question themselves. The difference is they know that it's game time and they show like they know everything. But the reason they have me as a coach, because they're questioning themselves.
Right. Well, I think it's kind of normal. I tell people, I've been doing public speaking for decades. I still get nervous before a speech. You still get nervous before a presentation. That's normal. And psychologists say that being nervous or anxious is the same emotion as excitement. So I just try to tell myself, you're excited. And one time I was giving a talk at Microsoft, and I said to the guy who did all the speeches, I said, do people get nervous before a speech? He said, yeah, they all get nervous, but the good ones use the nervous energy to get better and to be on their game. And it just blew my mind, because then I realized that you can use these emotions as sort of an engine to do a better job. I wanted to ask you about your book, though, The Art of Getting Everything, ladies, everything.
Yeah, the book was.
How'd you come up with the name, by the way? The Art of Getting
Came up with the name because I have mentored throughout my career Latinas. I mentor Latinas. I mentor like throughout 4 to 5 a year. And one of them was Alexandra Alonso. And I remember her calling me, oh my God, and this and that. And she was, and I had a very hard week. So it was a Friday and I was short with her. And I was mentoring her. And all of a sudden I said to her, oh, come on, Alexandra. Everybody asks these questions. Don't you ladies know this? Come on, Latinas. This is basic. And she said to me on the phone, she said, oh, if it's so basic, I don't know why you haven't written it down. And I was like, the challenge is on. So I went ahead and said, well, you know what? I'm going to write a book so that way you don't have to call me. She says, game on. Let's see if you do it. And I did it. It was un reto, como dicen en Puerto Rico. It's like, like she's giving me like the challenge. I'm like, I'll do it. So I wrote it. I am not like you, Juana, that you are an amazing author. I'm more of a speaker. So I wrote that book and people are like, oh, write another book. I'm like, I know, no, I don't.
No, es muy difícil.
Es muy difícil. It was so hard to do. So I did it for Alexandra Alonso. That's a very successful professional nowadays. So it's so funny when she sees me, she goes, oh my God, I can't believe you took me up on it.
So tell us a little bit about the book and what people can get out of that.
Yeah, the book is basically mainly for the younger Latinas in their 20s and early 30s, and it's about figuring out your path. What is it that you want to do and identifying that? And then based on that, how are you going to manage your career? How are you going to manage your family? And how are you going to manage your interests? And your interest is not that, oh, I'm a mom, so it's great. No, your interest is you as an individual, then your family and your career, and basically tools and ideas on what to do as you progress in your career. There's a lot of examples of people that I have coached, and they were all women. They were all Latinas. They all used alias names. They picked their own names and they said, yeah, go ahead and use this. But it's the real examples of them and how I guided them to get to where they wanted to get to.
Oh, fabulous, fabulous. So the art of getting everything. I know you personally, so I know you really do a lot about that self-care. And before we get into your origin story in Puerto Rico and all that, tell us a little bit about that, about how you take care of yourself and what some of your interests are, because I know you're a Renaissance woman.
Yeah, I am very much into taking care of myself. I literally take the thing of when you're in the airplane and they're saying you have to put your mask on first before you put it on your child. I believe in that. I take care of myself and I'm a better mother. I'm a better friend. I'm a better community individual. I'm a better partner. So basically what I do is I make sure every week that I do exercise. So this morning I woke up at 5:15 in the morning and I went for a 4-mile walk around where I live. We live in Colorado, so there are trails everywhere. I also make a point of going to the mountains at least once or once a week or once every other week. I also make a point of doing small little getaways. So I don't go for the big vacation. I do the big vacation. I'm doing it this September. I'm going to do El Camino de Santiago, but I also go and do small little things. And this year I've already done 4 getaways and I'm doing a 5th one, not this week, the following week, of which I go away and I paddleboard, I hike, I journal, I sit in nature. Nature for me basically recharges me. And then I come back and I'm very much involved with the community. It's not all about work. At the end of the day, my mother died in front of me as well as my former mother-in-law, and they were not talking about their careers. They were not talking about their work. They were talking about their life and the impact.
Yeah, everybody says that on your deathbed. Nobody says, I wish I would have worked more.
No, they don't. They don't. And
yeah.
so I've been there, and due to that, I learned that from my mother's. I mean, I was you knew my mother. I was very close to my mother when she passed. I mean, I remember just saying, I need to do this. And she told me that was her last thing. She says, you need to take care of yourself first, and then the rest comes. And this is a woman that came out of communism and had to like redo her life in Puerto Rico. So, I mean, it's totally, you have to take care of yourself and you have to find what you like to take care of yourself. For me, it's nature. Even when it's winter, and I did not grow up with winter, you know, and Juana, I go out there to do, what is it, the snowshoeing. I mean, I will do, but we live in a state that provides that great environment.
Yeah, and you know, a tip that I learned years ago, and by the way, I'm not doing it. I got to do it again. Is to calendar in your calendar.
I do. I gave you that tip.
No. I knew it before I knew you.
I know, but
look at the white hair. Look at the white hair. I've been at this a long time. But putting it in, you know, whether it's and for me, I do a lot of yoga because as you get older, ladies, you got to keep your flexibility. The number one reason beautiful elders have problems is because they fall, and that has to do with your balance and so forth. Yeah. So I've become a yogi. I love it because when you go to class, they go, yogis.
So the other thing I do,
you're a yogi.
So the other thing I do concerning the calendar that I do, it's like I said, I got home last night from a business trip. I was exhausted, but I said, I'm going to go for the walk, 5:15. Right there, I set my alarm for 5:15. Oh, I'm going to go and do this Pilates class. Right there, I set my alarm of when I have to start with the Pilates class. So I do that, but I do not wait. Oh, yeah, I'm going to do it on Wednesday. No, then an alarm goes off. I'm like, oh, I have to be doing Pilates.
Well,
Oh,
and I also want to give some, because some women I know, you and I have been working for a while, so we have a few more resources, I think, than some of the younger women. But during COVID, I mean, there's some wonderful meditation, yoga, exercises on YouTube. So ladies, don't say, oh, I don't have the money. You can do it, and you can do it at home. So you don't have to take the time. I have to go to the yoga classes because I like my yoga teachers, but you can do it right on YouTube. And we're encouraging you. And what I hear Elizabeth saying, you want to be a good negotiator, you want to have a good career. Well, you have to have that balance between family, community, and starting with yourself. So we started talking about your mother and communism and how you got to Puerto Rico. I think it's time for your origin story. Who is Elizabeth Suarez and how did you get where you are today?
So Elizabeth Suarez is the daughter of Consuelo Suarez and Oscar Suarez Jimenez, two people that met in Cuba. And they were introduced due to my mother's father, mi abuelo, Dionisio Suarez, introduced my mother to his stellar engineering employee. That's how they met. So, and from there, they fell in love. They had three kids, three beautiful brothers of mine in Cuba. Life was good. And then 1958-59 happened, and all of a sudden, Fidel Castro took over. So they lived under communism, and they realized this is not the future for their children because they wanted to have freedom of speech. And that's when they left and came to the United States property. We're looking at Puerto Rico. So
I know we have to remind people that Puerto Rico is part of the United States.
It's a part of the United States.
Not for us, but really the mainstream community does not comprehend that.
And it's a colony. I'm sorry to say it. I'm going to be the Boricua out there to say it. I mean, this is, we're so colonized. It's not, it's sometimes that you do, oh my God, I can't believe this. But then we got to Puerto Rico. Unfortunately, my father had a terminal illness. He passed very young and left my mother with these four children, three brothers that were teens. And then I was 10. And my mother basically had to go out there and say, I have to work. Thank God she was educated. She had a chemistry and degree in Cuba. But she realized that they did not want to pay her because she was not coming from an accredited university. At that moment, she realized my children are going to go to college to big land countries. So she says, or United States or Europe. They're not staying in University of Puerto Rico. None of us were allowed to apply to University of Puerto Rico. We wanted to stay. My brothers and I, we would have stayed in Puerto Rico. I love Puerto Rico. I go back to Puerto Rico constantly. My mother was like, no, because you never know what could happen to this island. So we all came to the United States, different universities. I went to Cornell University. But
and by the way, I want to come back and talk about that Cornell experience because of the incredible president and the vision he had that really brought Puerto Ricanos to study at Cornell.
Exactly. So basically, my mother raised me as this Latina, and she would sit down with me. I remember growing up, and I was very tall since young, and they would call me Jirafa, giraffe. And I was like, it's a bullying thing. Everybody called me Jirafa, giraffe. They will make fun of me and everything. And my mother sat me down and said, you have to control what you can control. You cannot control others. So let's talk about and study giraffes. What are the attributes of giraffes? And this is what you're going to say to people when they make fun of you of giraffe. I started doing it. She was the one that taught me about self-advocacy. So they would say, ay, la jirafa, get her because, she's so tall and clumsy and whatever. And I'll be like, yeah, they're picking me because I can see everywhere. All of you cannot. So let me see what's going on. And then I'll tell you what's going on. I remember saying that in third grade and everybody did like this. And the teacher even smiled. The teacher was like, okay, Elizabeth, can now you sit down? I mean, she even smiled, then called my mother and said, your daughter just did this. And my mother says, yeah, I taught her how to do that.
Okay, I want to add something here for people because I had the opposite. I am only 5'3". And so, people would say that I was short, chaparita, or that Latinos are short. And so I did the same thing. Most people in the world are my size. And in addition to that, it's good for you because your heart doesn't have to work so much. And then I got into this whole thing about how Anglos are so tall because they drink milk. That's another story, but you are what you eat. And that we are the right size. And the funny thing is now people think I'm taller than I am because I walk in, and I don't feel short. And if I'm in a picture, I'll go like this so that I'm at the same level. And I like the way the women that are listening can manage some of the things by figuring out, okay, this is a gift I was given. Like I'm an extrovert. It's a gift. Did I have to learn to manage that? Yes. But let's look at ourselves as having these gifts and then figure out how we can use them to promote ourselves.
And I don't feel
or
that
to
I'm,
love ourselves and accept ourselves.
yeah, and I don't feel that I'm excessively tall. I feel like, oh yeah, I'm like
How
every,
tall are you?
I'm 5'9".
Well, I would say.
I know.
So you see Latinas come in all sizes, in all colors. Well, tell us about, first of all, what it was like growing up in Puerto Rico, because for me, Puerto Rico is the only bilingual, bicultural place in the hemisphere.
Mhm.
So
So it was
do you
wonderful.
identify as both Cuban and Puerto Rican?
No, I identify myself as Boricua, and my Cuban family does. Pero tú eres cubana. You go, I was not born there. I was not raised there. I'm Boricua. I mean,
Yeah.
the Boricuas really brought me in, and I feel Boricua, and that's who I am. I mean, obviously my parents are Cuban, and yes, I will acknowledge that. That's my ancestry, but I am Boricua. And before that, my great-grandparents were from Spain. Now, the thing in Puerto Rico, why I feel so Boricua, is that my mother and my brothers and I, we grew up in poverty because we did not have anything. My father died. I mean, we were, government had to take care, help us. The neighbors had to help us and everything. And Boricuas looked at us like we were equal. They basically believed in us. So from that perspective, I feel strongly Boricua, and I owe it to that island. I owe a lot to that island.
Well, there's Bad Bunny too.
No, I love him. I went to his concert. I go to his concert. I love
There's
that.
Bad Bunny too. Anyway, I want to have you share how you got to Cornell University, because I love this story because it's about vision, it's about community, and it's about giving back.
Yeah, it was back in the 80s. And basically there were 20 of us that were chosen to, I mean, we all applied to different universities and everything. And 20 of us from this small island were chosen to go to Cornell. And it was determined by the president chancellor of Cornell at the time, Dr. Rhodes. And he basically thought, and he looked at his student body and he said, yeah, we have a lot of international kids, but they're all like well-to-do, and they're China, they're from South America, they're Europeans. But we're only focusing on the lower 48. We need to focus on more Americans. And that's when he went ahead and he says, I want to focus on Puerto Rico because I want to bring that diversity of culture, of language to our school. And he did.
And you go to upstate New York. For those that don't
New York.
know, this is Ithaca, New York, from the Isla. I mean, that's a big transition. That's really hard for us sometimes because we're so family and community rooted.
Exactly. And what's interesting, the 20 of us went, the 20 of us graduated, the 20 of us are still, and we still communicate wherever I go. I see whoever is there. And of the 20 of us, 13 of us send our child, one of our children, to Cornell. So the tradition continues. And the 20 of us went on full scholarship. The 12, 13 of us that send our children to Cornell, it went on our bill, on our account.
That's paying it forward, okay?
That's total paying it forward. My daughter is a proud Cornellian like I am. She graduated in 2023. It was so amazing to be in that graduation and see her. My cousin came because she says, I have to be there to see this. I mean, I was so emotional. She was so emotional. We drank the Kool-Aid of Cornell University. I know it's in Ithaca, New York.
I think it's just the fact that that Latinos, it's our generosity, it's our mutuality, it's that we want to contribute, because I doubt it you could find 13 families that said, I'm going to send my kids and I'm going to pay for it because they paid for me. And that's why I became successful. And I think that's a really incredible Latino lesson about who we are as a community and that we're here to give, not to take. And even the
Exactly.
ones who got educated went and contributed to the society like you have.
So Juana, I'm going back to Puerto Rico now and soon because I have a business trip down there. I have a client down there. Who am I meeting? My Cornellians that live in Puerto Rico. We're already set up to meet. Every time if I go to Miami, there's some there. I go to New York, there's some there. We always meet no matter
Well, I
where.
think that's another great lesson for Latinas, and that's to stay connected,
Mhm.
you know, and to have those networks. And now with technology and Zoom and the internet, we can do that and be friends with people that we've known, and they can support you as you go on your journey. You know, as we kind of look at Hispanic Heritage Month and our culture, what is some of the things that you hold most dear about being Latina?
I hold most dear the aspect of community, comunidad, and also family. And it's not that, oh, well, she's not my sister. One of my very close friends, I consider her mi hermana. And that's what I love about Latino culture. We don't care where we come from. We actually are comunidad. We get together. I mean, Juana, I've been part of this at your home, and you've been part of this at my home. You know, I normally do the Thanksgiving, you do the Easters, and we come together like in familia. We
Right.
really do, and we learn from each other, and we support each other, and we just like are good for each other. So that's one thing that Latinos, we know how to have comunidad, and we also know how to network. That is something that I have noticed concerning my counterparts that are not Latinos. They sometimes struggle with, Elizabeth, how can I get comunidad? Or Elizabeth, how did you network? How did you get to know these people? We're very, I mean, it's in our blood. We sort of do.
Mhm.
And by the way, I know you're an extrovert. I'm a performing introvert. I am not like Juana, that Juana loves to go to every party. I will go to parties, but then I need my recharging.
Yes.
I'm like an EV. I need to go and plug myself in and by myself.
No, and I think a good lesson for the Latinas that are listening is that, you know, the core of our culture is relationships, and it's family, but very extended family. Like you said, we have comadres, compadres, madrinos, primos, and we invite people to be part of our family. And I think now that we aren't necessarily where we were born, because, you know, now we have a more transit society, we have that ability to build that community wherever we land, wherever we are. And I really want to encourage our Latinas to do that, even to use this series as a way to connect, to learn more about Latinas, to contact some of us, to get our books. We're going to end with a group called Las Comadres that is going to invite the women to be part of it. So let's keep this community going, because, you know, in America today, people are lonely, people are isolated. 1 out of 5 people move every year. And one of the things we're going to contribute to this country is this sense of comunidad, of people come first, of relationships. And I just love the way you live that in your life. So as we close and you look back on your life, what is the legacy you really want to leave? What is, when you think about that?
I want to leave the legacy that I actually cared to advance the Latinas that come behind me, because I have a daughter and I see my friends networking with my daughter and helping her navigate her career in financial markets in New York City, which is a very cutthroat career. And it's the same. I even have sons and daughters of Latina friends that call me and they're like, ¿Tienes media hora? Do you have half an hour? I'm like, I have more than half an hour for you. I mean, that's the legacy I want to leave, that I was an open door and that I believed in comunidad. And, you know, at the end of the day, I am a woman, but I am a Latina woman.
Yes, yes. And the word Latina means woman and Latina. So we could just sum it
Exactly.
up in that one word. And I
Exactly.
wanted to end this with what Elizabeth is talking about is si se puede. And
Mhm,
remember, the say is we. Yes, we can.
mhm.
Latinos are a collective culture. The we is so important. And the intergenerational leadership that she's talking about us being tias and tios to our friends and our families that have children, and really creating this sense of together we can, not individually I can. So I hope this series is really helping women be thinking about those kind of things. Make sure you check out, we will have on Elizabeth's interview all her information about how to get a hold of her or to participate in one of her programs. You can buy her book and check her out on YouTube, etc. So thank you all so much for listening. We love all of you. Stay